about the So ridiculous. I would be really annoyed if I gave it away.
I still have my cabbage. He should have never.
An anxious crowd. I'm tired. Which one's in the professors?
Have a motion to move back into regular session, please.
So
Moved by Jack Fisher, second. Second by Jack O'Leary. We are back. The board met in the executive session to discuss a personnel issue and 2 student issues. Item 8 on the agenda is personnel items. Have a motion to approve personnel items, resignations A to C, appointments A to M, request for child rearing leave A, request for extension of bereavement A to C, and request for uncompensated leave item A. Motion, please.
So moved.
Moved by Jack Fisher, second.
Second.
Second by Brian Carso. Discussion.
That's not.
Feel we just discussed. All right, I'm gonna ask the secretary to call the roll, please.
Brian Carso,
Yes.
Sue Casey,
Yes.
Jessica Decker,
No.
Jack Fisher,
Yes.
Pam Lutfi,
No.
Jack O'Leary,
Personnel, all the personnel items.
But that means you're saying no to the resignations also, right?
Say no to the whole motion.
Everything, resignations, appointments, child rearing leave.
No.
The question's been called, so it has to be voted on as question called.
Jack O'Leary,
Abstain. I don't understand it.
Zachary Pierce,
Yes.
Jeff Pike,
Yes.
John Robleski.
Yes.
6 yes, 2 no, 1 abstention, motion carries.
Item 9 on the agenda is items for approval. All right, can I have a motion to approve item 9A, the ratification between the Delaware Valley School District and the Delaware Valley Education Association effective September 1st, 2015 through the end of August 31st, 2020.
So moved.
Moved by Pam Lutfi, second.
Second.
Second by Brian Carso. I'll highlight a couple of things as board president and chair for the negotiations committee. First off, I want to thank our staff here at Delaware Valley. It's no secret that the district is where it is because of people who work for us. As with any organization, the difference is its personnel. So thank you to the teachers union and for teachers for all that they do on behalf of the students every day. I want to thank the committee, Jack Fisher, Chuck, Bill Hessling, and John Bell. I want to thank the board for their patience during that negotiating process. I want to thank the negotiating committee for the teachers union, particularly their spokesperson, Mike Dobson, who was able to move negotiations along on their behalf. We were able to keep constructive dialogue moving. We began in November of last year. What we have before the board is a contract for ratification. It is a 5-year deal. There are step inclusive raises. Year 1, 2.75%. Year 2, 2.8%. Year 3, 2.85%. Year 4, 2.9%. And year 5, 3%. In addition, over the life of the contract, there is a total amount of $250,000 over the entire contract for co-curricular salaries and healthcare premium shared. It will be at $500 a year for each year of the contract. And there's significant plan design changes in the form of increased deductibles and copays. The net effect of that helps the district and also puts off the Obamacare tax so that the district is not exposed to that at all within the life of the contract. And then there are changes to the school calendar, which related to a further item, which I'll let the superintendent explain.
Yes, in February, there used to be 2 half-days leading in the President's Weekend, and then there were parent conferences on that Thursday night. And over the last couple of years, attendance has gone down dramatically, particularly since parents have access to Power School. So those 2 half-days in the parent conference on the February night are gone, and they'll be replaced with 2 full days of teaching.
Further discussion?
Zach, it's my intention to vote in favor of this contract. I believe it is a fair contract. The salary increases are reasonable. I just want to point out to everyone that it is going to have a financial impact on the school district moving forward. Personnel is one of our largest costs. So, moving forward, this will have an agreement. There may be certain mitigating factors because there are a lot of things that affect our budget. But there are costs associated with this. I think our teachers deserve the raises we're giving them. Again, I think it's a fair contract.
Well. Okay. Secretary, call the roll, please.
Ryan Carson.
Yes.
Sue Casey.
Yes.
Jessica Decker.
Yes.
Jack Fisher.
Yes.
Pam Lutfi.
Yes.
Jack O'Leary.
Yes.
Zachary Pierce.
Yes.
Chuck Pike.
Yes.
John Robleski.
Yes.
9 yes, unanimous, motion carries.
May I say on behalf of the teachers, thank you very much. I agree with you, Mr. Robleski. I think it's an excellently fair contract, and we are thrilled with our, relationship that we've always had. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item 9B is the ratification agreement between the Delaware Valley School District and the Education Support Professionals Association effective July 1, 2015 through June 30th, 2021. Motion, please. Moved by Jack Fisher, second by Chuck Pike. And I will give the highlights of that. And I want to thank our support staff. I know their union president is here, at least she was for a little while.
She had to leave.
Fran had to leave.
Still bus run.
Always hard at work. So I want to thank our support staff. Each of the segments there do a fantastic job on behalf of the district every day, really go above and beyond. Again, I want to thank the committee, Jack Fisher, Chuck Pike, John Bell, Bill Hessling, and then Peg Schaefer joined us on that negotiation. So I want to thank them for their time. I want to thank the board again for their indulgence and their patience. The support staff negotiating committee, and again, the union's president, Fran, they did a great job, very patient. Again, we were able to have a constructive dialogue and keep things moving. For the highlights of the contract, it is a 6-year agreement. Year 1, 65 cents. Year 2, 65 cents. Year 3, 65 cents. Year 4, 65 cents. Year 5, 50 cents. Year 6, 50 cents. There's been an insertion of a longevity stipend, and there's a health, the other major component is a healthcare, again, is $500 a year. And again, the increased deductibles and copays, which the net effect of that helps the district, and then also does not expose the district to the Obamacare tax. Further discussion.
Zach, same comments they had on the first contract, but I would also like to thank those board members who served on the negotiations committee. I've been there. I know it's a lot of time. It's a great investment of your time, and it's not an easy task to come up with a fair contract, so thank you for that.
6 year was 50 or 60?
50. For then years 5 and 6.
That's cents per hour, not cents per year. That guy's probably bargaining about the work.
All right, I'll ask Secretary to call the roll, please.
Ryan Carson.
Yes.
Sue Casey.
Yes.
Jessica Decker.
Yes.
Jack Fisher.
Yes.
Pam Lutfi.
Yes.
Jack O'Leary.
Yes.
Zachary Pierce.
Yes.
Chuck Pike.
Yes.
John Robleski.
Yes.
9 yes, unanimous, motion carries.
And Fran did ask me before she left on her behalf to thank the board members. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, item 9C is the approval of additional volunteers. You'll see it as an attachment in your board pack. Can I have a motion, please?
Motion?
Motion by John Robleski, second.
Second.
Second by Jack O'Leary, discussion. Hearing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor of approving the motion on the floor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, the motion is adopted. Item 9D is the motion for the approval of an additional Delaware Valley Adult and Community Education course instructor for summer 2015. You'll see it as an attachment in your board packet. Motion, please. Moved by Jack Fisher, second.
Second.
Second by Jack O'Leary, discussion. Hearing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor of approving the motion on the floor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, the motion is adopted. Item 9E is the approval of the Scranton-Lackawanna Human Development Agency agreement to provide Head Start programs in the pre-K. Motion, please.
Move.
Moved by Jack Fisher, second.
Second.
Second by Brian Carso. Does Peg or Jan want to speak to this, just briefly?
It's the same contract with the same rate of reimbursement that we've had for the last decade. So there are no changes to the contract.
Thank you. Further discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor of approving the motion on the floor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, the motion is adopted. Item 9F is the approval of the selection of depositories. You'll see them as items 1 through 9 on the board packet. Motion, please. Moved by Jack Fisher, second.
Second?
Second by John Robleski. Discussion. Hearing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, the motion is adopted. Item 9G is the approval of the submission of grant applications, items 1 through 10. You'll see them on your board packet. Motion, please. Moved by Cam Leffey, second. Second by Jack Fisher. Discussion?
Now, the federal impact aid, we're completing the grant application, but we understand it's not in the Obama budget. Is that what we heard?
It's not in the Obama budget, but and it's only in the committee now. The committee, I think it was the Senate Appropriation Committee, came out of committee with, including the impact aid appropriation in it. So that's very good.
That's good.
Good start. Good start.
Further discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor of approving the motion on the floor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, the motion is adopted. Item 9H is the approval of district insurance coverage from July 1, 2015 through June 30th, 2016. Items 1 through 9, you'll see it in your board packet. Motion, please.
Motion?
Moved by Jack Fisher, second. Second by John Robleski. Discussion.
Just want to thank Bill for all the work he did, tracking down the best costs for us and actually finding some savings for us this year. So thank you.
And if I may, the Workplace Safety Committee has worked hard. It's district-wide, it's include professional staff, support staff, administrators. We meet early in the morning, once a month before classes start, and we've really put a push on for safety, and we've done a lot of things. Marvin and his department, Chris Lordy and his, and everybody on that committee has really helped. And it creates our experience modifications going in the right direction, and we finally got some good competitive quotes from a couple different companies, and that's why you're seeing a much better rate for our workers' comp.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, hearing no further discussion, we'll move to a vote. All in favor of approving the motion on the floor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, the motion is adopted. Item 9I is the motion to approve the final adoption of the 2015-2016 Delaware Valley School District General Fund budget, reflecting a 1.21% tax increase at a millage rate of 107.35 mils, with a balanced budget of revenues and expenditures of $75,216,202, and approval of the resolutions for annual tax levy, homestead and farmstead exclusion, and transfer tax. And you'll see them as attachments in your board packet. Motion, please.
Motion?
Motion by John Robleski, second.
Well, this could be a long night.
Without a second, Mr. President, it has to be
Second is
tabled.
no commitment. I'll make a second.
Second, Ms. Pam brings it up for discussion.
I'd like to make a statement that I didn't make earlier. I said about an hour from now, little short on that. I sent this to Mr. Bell and Mr. Hessling today. Delaware Valley needs to put money in reserves to cover the $100 million liability that is growing in our PSERS obligation. DV incurs more costs than it is legally required to pay for each year. Yes, even when the DV required payment goes over 30% of annual payroll costs, DV will still not meet its annual cost incurred. Thus, every year we delay full or even partial funding of what we annually incur is one more year that a future generation of elected school board members will be obligated to pay for services they did not incur nor receive the benefit from those services by long retired DV employees. These school boards and taxpayers will then be overrun with costs they will be forced to pay, and to cope with the tsunami of costs and hence resort to cutting other non-mandated costs and then gut our well-built educational program in order to balance future budgets. In business, these are referred to as legacy costs. What it really is a financial cancer that will someday kill public education as we know it. This is the cancer that killed General Motors, Chrysler, Detroit, and maybe even Chicago soon, as their own debt ratings were downgraded to junk bonds just recently by Moody's. We must fund what we incur as opposed to pay for what we budget. I support a full 2.5% increase with almost all of the above that we budget, the surplus going toward the PSERS cancer. I hope you will at some point allow me to entertain a motion to bring us to the 2.5% increase that I prepared. Thank you.
Jack, I will say if nothing else, you're remarkably consistent. You know, I always know where you stand.
There's nothing else?
Yeah.
Is it not true that Commonwealth of Pennsylvania contributes towards our PSERS costs?
Sure.
So it's not entirely an unfunded liability.
No, only 50 billion of it is unfunded at the state level. The rest of it is 35 billion is funded. This is the $100 million that our auditors informed us of last year, which has grown, is our responsibility. Because we have a different responsibility than the state. The state has a responsibility to pay the retirees. That's their obligation. Our obligation is to pay PSERS. And that $100 million is going to show up on our balance sheet in about 2 weeks as we come to the end of this fiscal year.
As well as the balance sheet of every other school district in the Commonwealth.
Even more to the larger districts. It's pro rata based on your own payroll situation. So yes, that $50 billion is different than the $100 million, which we will be responsible for. And as of right now, the state, I believe, pays about 54%, if I'm correct. Is that right, Bill?
In the neighborhood of 55,
55%.
in that neighborhood.
Either way, even if it were half of $100 million, we only have $7.3 million set aside. We need to put more aside, and by simply raising the 1.2 to the maximum allowed by law, which is 2.5, we will bring in an additional $576,000, which we can then put into our reserve for that future payment that must be made by DB.
Any discussion on this?
7.3 right now. Reserve.
About 7.3 million we have in our PSERS
Committed fund balance.
committed fund balance.
And you will owe the 100 million.
We owe the 100
You
million.
owe
As
the
of tonight,
100
it will
million.
hit our books in about 2 weeks.
Half of it's reimbursed from the state, and then in Jack's scenario, that's if the system folds and the debt is transferred over to the school districts.
Well, just so we get back to it, it's not Jack's scenario. This is what's been developed by the generally accepted
We have to carry it on our books this year, correct?
this year and every year from now on.
Correct.
So it's not something I've made up.
It's an accounting,
It's an
coming from the accounting.
We don't have to come up with that $100 million. for next year to pay off that money.
No,
You
it's,
know,
We're not
it's
$100 million in debt. That's your answer.
And
you know.
that's, I was
We're
just
not
gonna
here
say, I
to
think
push.
that's important to get out there. I know that last time there was kind of, a
no,
lot
no,
of
we are
information.
$100 million. It is a liability that will show up on our balance sheet.
But it's not that any of the school boards, president or, in the past, didn't budget correctly, that all of this, they mismanaged the finances of the district, that we all of a sudden now owe that money. I just want to
The
clarify.
state mismanaged.
Absolutely, but I just
Right.
don't want that, the
Causing
misinformation
us-
was out there last time to
But we have
resurface.
known, I've been on the board now almost 20
Right.
years. We have known that the 4% payments that we were making under Governor Ridge were ridiculous. And the board did not want to raise taxes for nearly 6 years, and I give you credit for that. Even though I said the same thing when Zach was back in 9th grade, I was saying the same thing. We needed, okay. We need a full increase in our taxes so that we can begin to have this funding, so that a future board is not faced with a catastrophic scenario of cutting these programs that we love and not having the money to do it. And that doesn't even take into consideration what is the morality of incurring this cost for some future generation to pay. Not even taking that into consideration. The best thing that's happened is that some crazy group of CPAs decided you need to put this liability on the books of every organization that owes the money. And it will be there in 2 weeks. We don't get our audit until next January, and it will be there. And it will grow. We just approved some very nice increases in everyone's salaries, including the top end. And that was a big discussion point. And that top end will cause this liability to grow. And I believe a reasonable financial outcome is that we allocate an additional $567,000 so that we can put this money aside for the future.
And Jack said a very interesting thing. If it weren't for the CPAs to basically come out with, is it number 68, Gatsby?
67, 68 are the combined state.
If it weren't for that ruling where we had to carry it on our books, then there probably would never been serious conversations in Harrisburg about pension reform. Because I've been back 3 years, and they swore that was the first thing they were going to do in January of 2013, and they really did nothing about it. And if it wasn't for the pressure from the school districts saying, hey, look what we're up against, so that's a great point, Jack. If they didn't put it on the books, I don't know if it ever would have gotten to this serious conversation that's going on in Harrisburg right now about reform, which will do more to shrink the 100 million than we'll ever be able to do in terms of if there's a chance at shrinking that number, we need serious help.
Absolutely.
Well, my understanding is that Harrisburg can shrink it, but they're never going to shrink it so much that we don't have some obligation that we need to accumulate this money over time. Does that sound right, Jack?
There's no political willpower to have a major restructuring of state pensions. And that's what it would take. Maybe even you've heard the elimination of state pensions in favor of a 401k plan. Well, anybody who has a 401k plan or has a guaranteed $90,000 or $100,000 a year for life with full health care benefits would much rather take the secondary defined benefit plan. And what I'm saying is we know about this now. We know it's there. We absolutely must start putting money away for it. In our budget every year, and to give you an idea, we put money away for OPEB every single year. And we're not required to do that. And we may be one of the only districts that has money set aside, almost 100% of our OPEB, which are other post-employment benefits. This is the post-employment benefit. So I think we need to set a goal and we need to fund it every year and make it part of our life that we're going to try to somehow overcome this cancer. It is a financial cancer at the heart of any organization that has this type of liability. And it will, like every cancer, if you don't address it, it will make you very sick. And that type of sickness is what we don't want here at Delaware Valley. We have been more than reasonable in our budgets over the last 10 years. 6 full years of no tax increases during the worst economic recession we've seen since the end of World War II. But now's the time, as the economy is improving, as unemployment is down to 5.4%. Last year it was 10%, a year and a half ago. If we can't do this now, we can't muster the political will at this level to do it now, how do we ever expect these folks in Harrisburg who can't face the public to ever address the political will to do it? And I think it's a reasonable increase to our budget. I've been very consistent with that, Zach. Thank you very much.
I see this as a paper increase. I don't see the system collapsing. In fact, the system cannot collapse, because if it did, every school district in this Commonwealth would be bankrupt. If we raise taxes to put money aside for PESers, we will be one of very, very few school districts doing that, because most school districts are in much poorer financial shape than we are. I don't know what Harrisburg is going to do about the PESers problem, and I certainly do recognize that it's a problem. But they're going to have to continue to fund it. They've given us a schedule of increases, and those increases hurt our budget every year. We've responded to those increases with the 1.21%. To lay an additional burden on taxpayers of our district when no other district is going to go in that direction seems somewhat unfair to me. I really think this is a paper liability. I understand accountants care about that a great deal. But I think we have to think about the taxpayer.
And I would add to that, before putting the total burden on the taxpayer, I would recommend moving budget meetings to the evenings. All board members getting here to peel apart every account that we have, looking at everything. I mean, we have pages and pages of things we are approving that cost the taxpayers money. And let's start looking at everything then. But just to keep putting that burden on the taxpayer is not fair.
Well, one thing
Other school districts have made major sacrifices. We have not.
That's exactly what my point is. Those sacrifices of music programs and PE programs and after-school programs and co-curricular are the type of thing I'm looking to avoid.
Yeah, my concern, one concern that as a parent of young children in the elementary school is I don't want to find ourselves in a situation 4 years, 5 years, 6 years from now where we're in a crisis situation where we find ourselves needing to cut. I'm seeing that in higher education where I work. I don't want to see it in the school district. So I share Jack's concerns. That's all.
We're not actually cutting here, folks. We're building a new gym out there. We're building a new extension to a swimming pool.
And the budget that you just passed brings us up to about $84 million.
These are not exactly dire straits.
No,
Folks that are in dire straits are building new gymnasiums out in the back,
the point is,
expanding swimming pools.
the point is, those are minor costs compared to this. Minor. And Jack, we just approved
I
two
know
contracts.
what you're saying, but
We
just
just
to put an
approved
old
two contracts.
$8.3 million here and an old $8.3 million there, and,
Financing as well. That's the financial
it's all the
makeup.
same dollars at
Just so
the
we know.
round end of the day. You can call it what you want. But
It
$8
is
million
not
is $8 million.
It is not a paper liability. It is a true liability. And it is a liability that we incur every single year to pay our staff, our teachers, this pension. So there's nothing paper about it. What's paper is the fact that the state does not require us yet to fully fund it. And I'm not even asking for full funding, just so we know. I think the full funding, we're gonna find out next spring, the full funding is probably 50% of our costs each year. They're requiring us to pay less than a third. So I'm not even looking for full funding. I'm looking to start putting some money away so that we have some ammunition when they have their final settlement on how these costs are going to be paid.
Yes, sir. I don't mean to interrupt the board's discussion of this, but if I had $1 million and I bought something for $1 million, that doesn't necessarily mean that I can afford it. So the way I look at it in terms of what he's saying is, even if we can afford to build gyms and things like that right now, that doesn't necessarily mean that in 5 years, we'll still have that money to pay for this. I'm not 100% educated on what these numbers are for, but I mean, I pay taxes too, not to the extent that you do, but when I come back from the Marines in 4 or 5 years, I would personally rather not come back and have our school fall apart because we had the opportunity to be fiscally responsible and we're not. From an uneducated standpoint, that's the way I can view it.
Also from an uneducated standpoint, is there any harm in doing what Ms. Lutfi is saying? Because I am almost 100% certain that in a school district this large, with as many schools and as many programs and as much that we have, that there is plenty of fat that can be trimmed that's just been kind of agreed upon over and over again without really giving that much thought to. I mean, considering what you are requesting of the taxpayers, which as a taxpayer who is struggling to begin with is significant, and I do have children in this school system as well. I think personally it's you guys' responsibility to make sure that every single piece of money that's going out there is necessary. I mean, I think it's your responsibility as a board to pull it all apart, put it back together again. If this is the problem that you claim it is, rather than putting it back on us.
Okay, and I would just respond to that. We have spent the last 6 months going over the budget. Marvin came in with no increase. He's actually spending less money now than he did 9 years ago. We have gone back to each area. Maria came in with almost a break even. So each of the department heads has come into our budget meetings and presented, and they have done that. And we were satisfied with that. And this is an obligation the taxpayers already owe. They're just not paying for it. The taxpayers have put people in Harrisburg, politicians, who have created this nightmare. And therefore, the taxpayers need to know that they owe it already. And the question is, when will we pay it? And when that time comes when we have to pay it, will we have the money in reserve? Or will we have to cut these programs that we all love? I go everywhere and people applaud this school district.
I agree.
Well, that's a wonderful thing. I want to keep that going forever, not just for 2 years or 4 years or 8 years, but forever.
Our school taxes are kind of high.
Well, and we all have our own opinion of what's high and what's not. Nobody wants a tax increase. However, when you have an obligation increase already presented to you, and we were told this a year ago, and if you do nothing about it, you're right, it's the board's fault. They did nothing about it. But we will truly pay every penny of the money that is owed to Peasers, whether half of it comes from the state or all of it comes from us. I don't think there's going to be a catastrophic collapse. There's going to be a time when our budget will not allow us to raise X amount of dollars that we need because we're limited by Act 1 and how much we can raise. And we will then have to start paring back the music program, the co-curriculars, all the different things that we really have worked hard to put together.
But you don't know this for certain when, where, how. You don't have a crystal ball to say when it's going to happen. If it's going to happen.
It's happening. We're putting on our books $100 million of obligation,
I understand.
which will be paid. No auditor is going to let you put the money on the books if you don't have to pay it. One of the reasons in the past that the GASB, the Government Accounting Standards Board, did not force the issue, which the business issue was taken up almost 20 years ago. One of the reasons they didn't do that is because they weren't sure exactly who was obligated. We are now sure who is obligated. The Delaware Valley School District will be obligated to pay.
And as far as you see, the only way to handle this issue is the 2.5% tax increase.
No, actually, let me just, I'll
Okay.
stop you right there. We were allowed by state law to use the 2.5 plus a Peasers enhancement bill, is that exception to go above the 2.5% for Peasers. Is that 1.45 more, Bill?
But, yeah, that'd be about almost 2.
Almost 2 extra points. We have chosen in the last 6 or 7 years not to use any of the exceptions and not even to raise to the maximum. And that's why every year, I make this plea. So if we don't want to do that, we don't have to. I think the responsible thing to do is to finally admit that we have this obligation, it's real, or we can wait till next year and I'll make the same spiel again.
No, sorry, 2.5% does seem like kind of a large tax increase, but I completely agree with looking ahead for the future. And I also agree with Ms. Lefty says in terms of peeling apart the budget. I can't imagine what possible problem there would be in peeling apart the budget and trying to figure out, such as, if maybe even if we can't raise it to 2.5%, some increase would not be a problem. And instead of, we need to put money aside for the future in that sense. And even if that's instead of buying 50 iPads for the high school, that as a student, I can honestly say does absolutely nothing for education. We can put that into that budget.
And you're right.
And in that kind of merging, this seems like kind of a bigger issue than that would be debated today. But in terms of what the board does in the future, I think that's a very serious topic that should be discussed.
Last month, we approved a 2.27% increase. Tonight, we're dropping that a whole, we're going in the opposite direction of what I was hoping. So yes, we presented it last month. I think the press reported that it was 2.27, and I don't think there's been an uprising from folks who have sent John letters and irate phone calls from people with the 2.27 after it was put in the paper.
We had one call and one letter.
We had one call and one letter from announcing to the public 30 days ago a 2.27% tax increase.
Is any of this 1.2 going towards visas?
The
The 1.2 that's in the budget right now?
Just what's budgeted.
How much of that is for visas?
We had about an $800,000 increase in our visas obligation this year. That's roughly a 2% tax increase.
And that's separate from the 100 million. We're not putting money towards the 100 million.
Okay.
It's
This is
just our
to pay
annual
off the
increases.
annual
Yeah.
increase, okay.
Yeah, the PSERS obligation is about 819,000, as John mentioned, and this tax increase is 532,000. So we're able to do pay raises and that, and we, on the expenditure side, we've had salary reductions of $460,000 for many different reasons, primarily with the attrition of teachers and with the new teacher coming in. But we did have some other reductions. Workers' compensation, 214,000. Energy reductions, 118,000. Combination of our DB cyber school and cyber school tuition that we have to pay out by law, $82,000. We reduced that line item. Budgetary reserve that we use for case of emergency, we dropped 50,000. Tuition reimbursement, we dropped 40,000. Custodial substitutes, we dropped 27,000. The amount we leave for the competitions, we didn't cut any competitions. We just try and fine tune the amount of money we put in the budget depending on where they go or location. We dropped $26,000. So there's just some idea of where some of the reductions were to get to the 1.21%. But to answer your question, then, the current expense for the pieces, again, John said it too. It's not the putting it away, but the current obligation of 800,000, certainly with a $500,000 increase, then it's going towards pieces, but the combination.
Right, that's the $800,000 increase this year.
Thanks for mentioning it, because that's all those examples of how we've squeezed the budget.
We have
50,000 here,
ripped apart,
100,000 there, 12,000 there. That's where hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars have been wrung out of this budget from last year to this year.
Unfortunately, during the preparation of the proposed final budget, which was May, I was nearing resolutions of the contract so that we were able to budget and know what those numbers would be, and that was just it. I mean, so that's reality. So 9A and B that the board just approved in, so we're really talking about that along with the 3 other contracts we approved in the last year and a half. That's 76% of the budget. Right there.
Just so I'm clear on this, budget increase this year and stand 532,000, correct?
That's the motion that was decided after the work session last week.
Okay,
No, that's not the increase in the budget. That's the increase in taxes.
in taxes, okay.
The budget is up from last year
$1.9 million.
1.9 million.
Did any portion of that cover the 800
Yes.
thousand obligation for
Yes.
visas?
The whole amount, the whole
Yeah.
covering the increase of that.
I think that one of the things that, as far as adding to the PACERS fund to budget for the $100 million is, historically, we've had those unspent funds at the end of the year. I know there was a healthy debate in October, which I may have missed. But I think that that's an opportunity for us to talk about, if you're talking about $500,000, we've had more than that, in the past several years. And maybe that's the time that we can take that money and put it into a PACERS fund as opposed to raising taxes to do so.
That's what we wanted to do last year.
And it went to CTE instead. We missed a year.
Well, we don't know where it went. You know,
I know where it went. Yeah.
it's in an account.
We're doing
called-
more transfers tonight.
It's in an account called Capital Reserve Fund for board approved projects. If it would have gone into an account that said PACERS or CTE specifically, I would have been more happier.
You could have made a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Yeah, you can make a motion, you'll get a second. If you want to set up another reserve, we can do that. But we have a reserve called PACERS, and we didn't fund it last year with our surplus. I'm hoping we have a surplus this year. Bill has mentioned the number of $500,000. That'd be nice to put that away into PACERS. This is an increase for every year. This isn't just a one-time increase, because this liability is there forever. It's not going away. It's only going to grow, especially tonight when we increase salaries, call it 15%. You can be sure the PACERS obligation will follow that 15%.
When we get to October. And if we're as fortunate as we were last year, to have extra money, I'll agree with you at that time, same thing. CTA or PACERS.
Almost every budget that I've seen built here in nearly 20 years is a surplus budget, because you never want to build a deficit budget. You just don't want to get into that routine. It will, or a zero budget. I agree.
And you have to have money for contingencies, because
Sure.
contingencies can happen.
Now, if we have left over, like Jessica says, I'll be as consistent as you. I'll ask for the same thing last year I'll ask for the same thing this October as I did last October.
I appreciate that.
And I'll make the motion then that I want it in a fund that specifically says that. I don't like general,
Well, the PACERS fund is a separate commitment. Yeah.
but if it's to go to
Invested.
CTE, if you lose and it goes to CTE, I hate to put it that way. I'd like it specifically to state that it's going to CTE.
You can
That
make
that
motion, but that is-
2.07 million that we moved into that capital reserve fund for board approved projects, I'm uncomfortable with that. I like these, I said last week, you weren't here, I said I like to be specific. I like to be specific. I know you do, because you're an accountant. I like neat accounting.
Yeah, this is neat accounting. You owe $100 million. If you decide not to pay it, some other board in the future will have to pay it. We've already incurred the obligation. The state forced us to incur the obligation. We are a product of the state. The school board only exists because the state mandates that we exist. So they can tell us to do anything. So exactly, that's the end of my spiel.
Consistent, yes.
Consistent but not consistent.
The $100 million obligation that we have, how has that changed over the last 2 years? Has that number stayed the same?
I don't know if they've recognized the number, put a number on it until
This is it.
recently. But the big question, and John mentioned it, is that it's been determined, since we physically have to cut the check to PACERS, then the state reimburses us 55%. But because of the fact that we have the first move to do that, that's the amount that's got to go on our books. And I guess their theory or whatever is that even though they have been reimbursing us minimum of 50, in our case it's 55, it's a crazy formula that I want to get into, but every school district gets at least 50. I guess the GASB states that there's no guarantee that the legislators will continue to approve that in their budgets, even though it's been there for ever since I've been around. It's been way too long. But
Where do we, if I can just follow, where do we expect that to go to next year, that 100? Is that
It depends upon the investment earnings of the whole PSER system. Certainly, when we're going from, we've in the last 3 years went from a 12.5% to 16 to this year's 21.4 and next year's 25.84. And then the following year goes to 29.69, and then it hovers around 30 to 32 for the next 6 years. And again, that's based upon the actuarial projections as of June 30th of 2014. But it's a factor of, like, during the years when they were not able to hire people, it actually hurt the system because there weren't people putting money into it when they weren't able to hire people. But, we can have the discussion in October, and we're gonna have it, Jack, yeah. And I raised it a little bit, Jack, the other day when I was, the work session was here, so. But to answer your question, Chuck, that's kind of, they made the decision, since we had to cut the check to Pacers, that's why the 100% liability goes.
Just refresh me, a very small percentage of that PSERS check now goes, I think it's about 1.8% toward what? The state, if they.
When the state uses it, you mean?
Yeah,
They assist retirees by $100 a month for their health insurance.
So do we still get credit for that amount, or is that now?
That's all built in.
Okay,
But in our, we get that money back to us through our contractual
We do,
obligations.
okay.
for teachers.
oh, okay, oh, they do?
Just, for the purposes of the record, there was, the 6 years of zero tax increases coincided with a time when there was a reduction in student enrollment, which also happened to coincide with a time in attrition, eliminating positions. So while, a lot of districts might have the student enrollment decline, you don't necessarily have the offsetting of attrition. So you, in that case, would have to furlough staff, which Illinois School District has never done in its history. A study came out in the last couple of years, I've said it before, I'll say it again, one of the 10% of school districts in the entire state, so 1 of 50 out of the 500, not to have ever furloughed staff, and especially in the last tough economic time, so.
But we're down about over 40 positions through attrition. We've shaved over 40 positions since the recession.
That's where C savings are.
And for those new in the audience, our district, we chart, and we have one of the lowest costs per pupils on the expenditure side in the area, and especially, we're an IU 20, is the IU, the intermediate unit that we're in, so we track that, so we're kind of proud of that because we get the good academic results at a good price, so that's what you're looking at.
We're the lowest, you know?
We moved up in.
13 and 12, but I question the 12 and 13, so
They're playing with their numbers over there.
We showed a slide and we don't believe it
Yeah.
because somebody's budget, their budget went down.
Yeah.
Right, it said their budget went down a couple million, which we find that hard to imagine. So that's the only way they got ahead of us.
All right,
We're far from broke, put it that way.
So
We're
I'd like-
far from broke.
I'd like to make a motion to table the proposal I just read. Give you a second. A motion to table that.
is there a second on the procedural motion to table?
I'll second that.
There's been a second. I'll ask the secretary to call the roll on the motion to table. If you vote yes, you will be tabling the motion on the floor.
We can come back.
If you vote no, the motion will go back to.
And to table, it means that we can come back to it if we.
Yeah. Call
Make that motion.
Secretary to call the roll, please.
Is anybody confused about the motion?
Yes.
So let's-
Motion, a
can we
motion to
clarify that
table,
for everybody?
a motion to table means that you're gonna take this motion off the floor that we currently have, 9-I. So if you vote yes, you're tabling it. If you vote no, you don't wanna table it, you wanna go back and keep the active motion on the floor.
But we're not replacing it with anything right now, just
You can't
table
motion,
it.
you can't do it, you have to have
Somebody will have to
something
make
that's
the
Next.
motion.
Next.
We have 12 days to pass the budget. I'm just saying.
I have another motion.
Motion to table is an undebatable motion, so Secretary to call the roll, please.
Ryan Carson,
Yes.
Sue Casey,
Yes.
Jessica Decker,
No,
Jack Fisher,
Yes.
Pam Lutfi,
Yes,
Jack O'Leary.
No.
Zachary Pierce.
No.
Chuck Pike.
Yes.
no, I'm going
John
to.
Robleski.
No.
4 no,
No.
5 yes. Motion carries.
Motion is tabled.
Mr. President, I'd
The
like
chair will entertain the motion.
I'm not in favor of a higher one either.
Go ahead, Jim.
approval of the final adoption of the 2015-2016 Delaware Valley School District General Fund budget reflecting a 2.5% tax increase at a millage rate of 108.72 mils with a balanced budget of revenues and expenditures of $75,783,802. It includes a $567,600 increase to the PESERS 230 object code on the expenditures and a $567,600 increase to the function code real estate taxes on the revenues to the $75,216,202 budget version in the board handouts tonight and adjustments according to the resolutions accordingly.
Okay, so in English, that is, the tax rate would be 2.5 and all the extra money would go to the PESERS account.
A motion has been made. Is there a second?
Second. Oh, that's my motion. I'm really excited about it.
I'll make a second for discussion purposes.
We didn't just have that discussion. There's a second. The motion is on the floor.
I call the question.
Question's been called. Secretary, call the roll, please.
I can't discuss that.
Brian Carson.
No.
Sue Casey.
No.
Jessica Decker.
No.
Jack Fisher.
Yes.
Pam Lutfi.
No.
Jack O'Leary.
No.
Zachary Pierce.
No.
Chuck Pike.
No.
John Robleski.
No.
8 no, 1 yes, motion.
Sorry, Jack, that was quick.
Mr. Chairman,
I knew this man was quick.
The chair wants to entertain a motion. Go ahead, Brian.
I would like to make a motion that we approve the final adoption of this upcoming year's budget at sticking to the 2.27 rate that we talked about earlier, and that it be calculated accordingly in terms of the millage rate and so forth, and that all the revenue above the 1.21% go into a PESERS fund along the lines of what Jack Fisher discussed.
So that's the motion from last month. Do we have that?
2.27.
2.27 is our proposed preliminary number. Do you have that?
I think he said that accordingly.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
That was nicely said.
Okay.
Must be an attorney.
So you said it, I'll second it.
That's for a second. Thank you, Jack. Okay. Discussion.
So in English, this is 2.27 with the difference going to PESERS, between 2.27 and 1.21.
Jack and Brian were not here last week when I announced that I was a no vote on anything because I wanted to see some people who were no votes all the time put their big boy pants on. So for that reason, I'm going to be a no when we do a roll call. I support 2.27, but I want to see where other people stand.
You're gonna pass, you're gonna vote no?
I'm voting no.
Oh. You can pass.
Discussion on the motion on the floor.
You can pass and have them come back to me?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I could do that and see if I get five.
Just say pass.
Okay, fine.
Maybe we could count last one. Secretary, call the roll, please.
Brian Carson.
Yes.
Sue Casey.
Pass.
Jessica Decker.
No.
Jack Fisher.
Yes.
Pam Lutfi.
No.
Jack O'Leary.
No.
Zachary Pierce.
No.
Chuck Pike.
Yes.
John Robleski.
No.
No.
6 no, 3 yes, motion failed.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion. Let's keep the elephant out of the room. I make a motion, we do a 0% increase.
Second.
Call the question.
No question.
Well, wait, 0 with what happens?
What happens?
What are you taking
Yeah, tell us
out?
what happens with the difference.
0% increase. Bill has a budget for 0.
Bill, you got a budget for 0.
Bill's got a budget for everything.
All right, Bill.
As I recall, this was asked of me last week, and I gave a starting point that I would recommend, so the programs weren't hurt, and it would start with budgetary reserve being eliminated, but I did not go any further with that discussion.
And that's 300,000. And how much do we need to cut? 500?
No,
Zero?
1.2.
5 something?
Give me one second. No, what am I doing? What am I saying we're cutting from?
He's taking 300,000 off of 500,000, right?
We,
What are we going to? The motion that's on the floor of the one?
Out of the 121.
No, 121. 532,400.
Right, and you're gonna take out
Whole budget?
300,000.
reserve.
300,000.
now we
Get
got,
down to 200,000.
so now we gotta cut $232,000 worth of programs.
What do you want to cut?
Question's been called. Do a roll call vote.
Oh, no, no.
We have an instant.
We got 232,000 out there that you guys gotta tell us what we're cutting.
You want unbalanced budget? Is that what you want?
Take it out of the capital reserve fund from last year for board-approved projects. We got.
Which is probably gonna go to
$3.8 million
CTE in
there.
November when we vote on it, but.
We can spare 200,000. I'll take the gamble that we'll have 200,000 left over this year.
Or find it on the revenue side, if we're gonna get this motion on the floor.
Motion on the floor. There's been a first and a second. 4-0.
For a zero,
300 capital reserve,
with an unknown
unknown
Difference.
232,
difference.
probably programs.
All right, last secretary call the roll.
Brian Carson.
No.
Sue Casey.
No.
Jessica Decker. Yes. Jack Fisher.
Pass.
Pam Lutfi.
Pass.
Jack O'Leary.
Pass.
No.
No, forget that pass.
No.
It is right, it's becoming a joke.
John
I'll vote
Malevsky.
vote yes.
No.
Did you hear
Anybody
Jackie
vote
say?
yes?
I'll vote yes,
Anybody else?
because I don't want
pass?
to turn this into.
So 2 yes, 5 no, 2 pass, motion failed.
Chair will make a motion to take the original motion off the table.
There's been a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second for Jack Fisher.
So we're back to the original motion of a 1.21. Let's call the question, see what happens.
Let's just vote our conscience.
I'm sorry, who was the second on that?
I believe it was Jack.
Jack Fisher.
So we're back to the
9 ayes, back on the table,
Oh, fine.
as written.
Back to 1.3.
Discussion. I'll ask secretary to call the roll, please.
Brian Carson.
No.
Sue Casey.
No.
Jessica Decker.
No.
Jack Fisher.
Yes.
Pam Lutfi.
No.
Jack O'Leary.
No.
Zachary Pierce.
Yes.
Chuck Pike.
No.
John Robleski.
Yes.
3 yes, 6 no, motion failed.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion. We make it 2% easy.
We don't go home and think about this and set up a meeting. This is just getting.
And with that, again, the same thing, everything over 1.21% would go to a Feesers reserve.
Second motion.
The first and the second on the floor. Discussion. Motion.
If I may. Nobody likes to raise taxes. 2% is an extremely reasonable amount of money to raise taxes when we've got real issues to deal with. I'd much rather be safe this year when we've got a little bit of elbow room, when the public has already thought about a 2.27. I really want to avert problems in the future. I don't want to be on the board. I don't want my kids to be in the school where the board has to drastically cut programs because of budget obligations that we didn't have the foresight to make incremental provisions for. So that's why I'm going to vote for the 2.0.
The public was presented 2.27 from our last meeting, and as we heard, there was one phone call and one letter. So, we don't have a room full of taxpayers, filling this room right now, voicing their opposition to 2.27. So I would support that, and I would support 2.0.
Secretary, call the roll, please.
Brian Carson,
Yes.
Sue Casey,
No.
Jessica Decker,
No.
Jack Fisher,
Yes.
Pam Lutfi,
No.
Jack O'Leary,
No.
Zachary Pierce,
Yes.
Jeff Flake,
Yes.
John Robleski.
Yes.
5 yes, 4 no, motion carries.
Budget. Item 9J. Item 9J is the approval. Have some order, please. Thank you. Item 9J is the approval of 2014-2015 budgetary transfer for the purchase of textbooks. You'll see it as an attachment in your board packet. Motion, please. Moved by Jack Fisher, second.
Second.
Second by John Robleski. Discussion. Hearing none, we'll move to a vote.
This is the budgetary transfers, that takes our 350 that we didn't use and reallocates.
Okay, actually, you know what? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, the motion is adopted. Item 9K is the approval of type A school lunch costs for the 2015-2016 school year. You'll see the prices in your board packet. Motion, please.
Motion.
Motion by John Robleski, second by Brian Carson. Discussion.
What's the increase?
No increase.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Okay, Jack Fisher's opposed. The motion is adopted. Item 9L is the approval of school breakfast program for the 2015-2016 school year. You'll see the three numbers in your board packet. Motion by John Robleski, second. Second by Jack O'Leary. Discussion.
Is school breakfast program mandated now?
I believe it is.
It's part of the.
National School Lunch
It's part of the
Program.
national school lunch.
Yeah. And it's no change in price from this year.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, the motion is adopted. Item 9N is is the motion to approve the revised calendar 2015-2016. You'll see it as an attachment in your board packet. Motion, please. Moved by Jack Fisher, second. Second by Brian Carso, and as previously mentioned, this coincides with the adoption of the teacher's contract, which was item 9N. Discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor of approving the motion on the floor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, the motion is adopted. Item 9N is the approval of student handbooks. You'll see them as attachments in your board packet. Motion, please. Moved by Jack Fisher, second. Second by Brian Carso. Discussion.
John, did you get it either with?
Yes. Brian, you want me to take it or you want me? The handbook issue?
I'd be happy to.
Okay.
There's 3 paragraphs in the handbook, probably that you're referring to, that have different situations that have punishments that relate to our drug policy, paragraphs 2, 3, and 5. All of them coincide with what the policy says. The policy is just very brief and concise. If you do these things, all followed by comma. What has happened over time is as situations have happened, and we feel it's better to be as specific and clarify as much as possible in the handbook to reiterate what the policy says. So basically, they're a little redundant, but none of them go against the policy. They simply reiterate what's in there.
One of the examples was the students bringing alcohol or possessing alcohol on campus. And remember last year in the football game, there were 20 or 21 Scranton High School kids that all got off the fan bus here. Our discipline doesn't apply to that, but it's a big example of kids drinking at student activity. So that's why I think at some point in time in the past it was expanded upon.
And I do understand that. The first full paragraph contradicts the third paragraph because one says it's a 10-day suspension and there may be additional punishments basically. And then the third paragraph says any of those, do you know what I mean? Any of them equals an expulsion. So
We'll go, I believe will be referred to the superintendent for expulsion review. So the referral to superintendent, I thought, was the language. I could be wrong. I'm not looking at it.
me either. That's right. I
I think it's page 13 in that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so will result in a recommendation for expulsion as well as recommendation.
Sue?
I would just say the word contain is misspelled, but you'll find out, I'm sure. One of the changes in the high school handbook, contain is misspelled.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, the motion is adopted. Item 9O is the approval of concurrent enrollment agreements, item 1 to 2, the same in your board packet. Motion, please. Moved by Jack Fisher, second. Second by Brian Carso, discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, the motion is adopted. Item 9P is the approval of the contracts of affiliation 1 to 6. Moved by Chuck Pike, second. Second by Brian Carson, discussion. Hearing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, the motion is adopted. I have a motion for the expulsion of student 2014-2015-1002538 through the end of the first semester of the 2015-2016 school year with the right to reapply at the beginning of the 2015-2016 school year based on the specific conditions per the adjudication. Motion put on the floor. Moved by Jack Fisher, second. Second by Chuck Pike. Can I have a motion? There's no discussion. Can I have a motion to amend the motion for the expulsion of student 2014-2015-1002538 through the end of the first semester of the 2015-2016 school year? Motion to amend.
So moved.
Moved by Brian Carso, second.
Second.
Second by Sue Casey. I'll ask for a roll call on the motion to amend. So if you're voting yes, you're amending the motion on the floor. Everybody clear on that?
Yes.
Essentially removes the last part of the.
That's correct.
Right.
Call the roll on the motion to amend, please.
Brian Carson.
Yes.
Sue Casey.
Yes.
Jessica Decker.
Yes.
Jack Fisher.
Yes.
Pam Lutfi.
Yes.
Jack O'Leary.
Yes.
Zachary Pierce.
Yes.
Chuck Pike.
Yes.
John Robleski.
Yes.
9 yes, unanimous, motion carried.
I'll ask Secretary to call the roll again on the motion on the floor, which is the motion, because we just voted on the motion to amend, my understanding. We now have to call the roll again on the motion that I read, the amended motion.
Run out of sheets there, Julie.
I know, we're almost done here, guys. Brian Carzo.
Yes.
Sue Casey.
Yes.
Jessica Decker.
Yes.
Jack Fisher.
Yes.
Pam Lutfi.
Yes.
Jack O'Leary.
Yes.
Zachary Pierce.
Yes.
Chuck Pike.
Yes.
John Robleski.
Yes.
9 yes, unanimous, motion carried.
All right, item 9R is the expulsion of student 2014-2015-1002370 for 90 days. Motion, please. Moved by Jack Fisher, second. John Robleski. There is no discussion because it's a student issue. We'll move to a vote. All in favor? Actually, I'll call the roll. I don't know if I have to do that or not.
No,
Do I have to
you
do that?
just do
On a student?
No.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, the motion is adopted. Item 9S is the acknowledgement of the completion of the induction process. You'll see the names in your board packet. Motion, please. Moved by Jack Fisher, second. Second by John Robleski. Discussion.
Yeah, what does this mean?
That's an involved mentoring process for our new teachers and also for any long-term sub here in one position for more than 45 days
Terrific.
required by PD.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, the motion is adopted. Item 9T is the recommendation for tenure. You'll see the names in your board packet. Motion, please. Moved by Jack O'Leary, second. Second by Jack Fisher. Discussion.
What's the requirements for tenure?
I'm very glad to see that Monica Gilroy's name is on it. I think she does an excellent job. And those two little girls that were in here before, my daughters, Monica Gilroy, I told them, right? Was very glad to see her name on there. She's very hard worker.
Requirements for tenure are 3 years of satisfactory service.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, the motion is adopted. Item 9U is the approval of the of the superintendent's annual evaluation. Motion, please.
So moved.
Moved by Sue Casey, second. Second by Chuck Pike. The evaluation was approved, carried out in accordance with Act 141 of 2012. the results of which are confidential, but subject to Act 141. The summary sheet is posted online, and whether the superintendent met the mutually agreed upon objective performance standards. And I just want to commend the superintendent for his work in this past year, and he's certainly going to be busy in the next couple of years. So. Any other discussion? No, hearing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor of approving 9U, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, the motion is adopted. Item 9V is the approval of the resolution of the Board of Directors of Delaware Valley School District to adopt medical appeal procedures as defined under the Federal Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act. You'll see it as attachment in your board packet. Motion, please.
Motion.
Motion by John Robleski, second.
Second.
Second by Jessica Decker. Discussion. Hearing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor of approving the motion on the floor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, the motion is adopted. Item 9W is the approval of the contract for Susan Spicken Pediatric Therapy LLC to provide physical therapy services at a rate of $110 per hour effective July 1, 2015. Motion, please.
Motion.
Motion by John Robleski, second. Second. Second by Brian Carso. Discussion.
How many hours do we anticipate on an annual basis?
There are 17 students, so about 9 hours a week.
And this is what replaced the IU used to provide these services, correct? And then we contracted.
The IU 2 years ago, Center for Developmental Disabilities, the last 2 years.
Okay. All in favor of approving the motion on the floor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, the motion is adopted. Item 9X is the approval of the motion to approve Burkavich Design Associates as the architect of record and the Quandale Construction Group as construction estimators and managers pending continued satisfactory performance for the renovations and additions to the CTE wing of the Delaware Valley High School. In that role, Burkavich Design Associates is authorized to prepare construction documents, make necessary submissions for regulatory approval, and act on the district's behalf to engage consultants, testing agencies, or other professional services as required to complete the documents. Motion, please. So moved. Moved by Jack O'Leary, second.
Second.
Second by Chuck Blaine. Discussion.
Do we know cost for this?
What are they doing?
What are they gonna do? How much
What
it's
are
gonna
they putting in
cost?
the budget for this?
The architect was 7%. And then, of course, there's other fees that are standard that are for like certain geotech type things and for, in this case, the services of
Dr. Hornberger.
help me with Dr. Hornberger. And Quandale, we're finishing up with their contract language because we need to get them started, but we're waiting for Saturday. We just got started with them, but it'll be similar to the complex project on the south.
Well, we haven't picked an option yet, right? We
No.
had that
No.
conversation.
So this is like a procedural measure though,
Get
to
them-
get that ball rolling.
Right, because we need them, when we get to the point where we have a certain option we like, or say we have two options that we're really, we need these guys, the architects will do the drawings, Quando will do the estimates, and then come back to us and say, okay, here's how much this option A is, and here's how much option B is. So they help us with the pre-construction before we ever get into construction phase.
But if
So
you don't
Don-
have 5 supporting CTE, we won't owe them anything, we'll just
Yeah.
walk away.
No, I don't think so. They're incurring costs, right?
Yeah. Yeah, they would certainly have to bill us for any pre-construction, say we don't construct for whatever reason. We'd still have to pay them for their pre-construction costs.
No. Do you have any idea what the pre-construction costs are?
7%,
7% of what?
10 million.
Of the 10?
The architect.
Well, the architect's fee is 7%
Of the project.
Of the project cost. But is this separate from that, or is this part of that?
The which piece, Jack, I'm sorry.
What we're approving here for Burkavich, not Flynn.
Would be 7% of whatever gets constructed.
And what if we don't ever construct? How much are we on the hook for?
Or they'd probably bill us at their
They would
hourly
probably bill
rate.
us hourly, but it's probably, if it's a good point. I would think that maybe the motion needs to say, if the project does not come to fruition, then it would be billed at their hourly rate.
You guys want to know what the hourly rate is, just like we just approved an hourly rate for something else.
It's unanticipated number of hours.
Gotta be, pre-construction design has to be a certain amount of money.
Yeah.
Can you just wait till next month?
If you don't want anything, well, I mean, Don's pretty good about working on things, but if you want to put everything on hold for a month, then it can, as long as, I'm not sure what time constraints for.
Call Don on the phone? We'll get the answers.
Well, I mean, that's a good point. I mean, because
Well,
you
if you
can't
have
assume the
funds-
project's gonna be approved.
Yeah.
Unless you have
How much would he charge us to take a phone call at 10:30?
We'll find out based on
What's
that
his
hourly rate.
consulting fees?
I can tell you it's more than that 110 an hour.
I can guarantee it's more than 110 an hour. About 4 times that.
I support the project and I hope that the board follows through and supports the project in future years, so I think I'm comfortable with the way.
You want me to get an hourly rate or no? Probably get one.
Well, it's only pertinent if we think we're not gonna build.
That's, yeah. I mean, that's
Or if we
valid.
can wait a month, and then we'll have the whole enchilada.
That's gonna kick everything back up. You're gonna be pushing
Are we on that
bids-
type of
you're pushing
time
bids
frame already?
back. Well, you wanna get construction started next summer, I guess, right? That's the idea.
To get the construction started in June, we have to open the bids no later than February, which means we really need to spend time getting these options to you so that you guys can make a final commitment and then we get the ball rolling.
All right, so I'll add to, can I amend the motion?
Motion to amend the motion.
Well, I'd rather table it, but if we need the timeframe, I'll put the whole motion to a maximum of $25,000.
We might as well table it.
That's not enough, huh?
Well, I'm just
pre-construction.
saying, otherwise, I see what you're saying, I'm just thinking that,
He's just trying to take the hourly rate up to 25,000.
right,
I don't think it even has to be.
we'll still need another motion. Right, we'll still need another motion in July, this only allows us to start.
Right.
Okay.
Why don't you just make it subject to a satisfactory hourly rate?
It's an interesting discussion about the old, what comes first.
Chicken and egg.
We're not getting that
How do you
discussion
approve
right
a
now.
project?
All right, so, hold on.
I don't know.
How much does the card cost?
This is the worst case scenario, but I guess there's a motion to amend the motion not to exceed $25,000. Is there a second on the motion to amend?
Second.
Jack O'Leary, second. Secretary will call the roll on the question of whether to amend the motion or not. If you're voting yes, you're amending the motion. If you're voting no, you're not. It's a good thing I looked at the rules today. You're not amending the motion.
Ryan Carson.
Yes.
Sue Casey.
Yes.
Jessica Decker.
Yes.
Jack Fisher.
Yes.
Pam Lutfi.
Yes.
Jack O'Leary.
Yes.
Zachary Pierce.
Yes.
Chuck Pike.
Yes.
John Robleski.
Yes.
9 yes, unanimous, motion carried.
One more time, Julie.
Okay.
And just for clarification, this will allow us to start, but we can't spend more than 25,000. We will bring you back a
Okay, I'm
more
going backwards
thorough
now.
appointment next month.
I'm going backwards because that's the sheet I have now. John Robleski.
Yes.
Chuck Pike.
Yes.
Zachary Pierce.
Yes.
Jack O'Leary.
Yes.
Pam Lutfi.
Yes.
Jack Fisher.
Yes.
Jessica Decker.
Yes.
Sue Casey.
Yes.
Brian Carson.
Yes.
9 yes. Unanimous, motion carries.
Don't put down at 10:30. We don't want to use up that 25,000.
Looks like burning it.
You can burn it up in a hurry. All right, item 9Y is the motion to approve the board policies, items 1 to 12. You'll see them as attachments in your board packet, and they have been previously discussed. Motion, please.
So moved.
Moved by Sue Casey, second.
Second.
Second by Jessica Decker. Discussion. Hearing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor of approving the motion on the floor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. Item 9Z, the best letter of the alphabet, is simply a review of board policies and unfortunately does not get its own motion. So, but it is out for review, and please be diligent in reviewing them, and they'll come to you on your board packet next month. Item 10 is other business. I'll go first to members of the board. Hearing none, members of the public. Okay. Oh,
Sorry. I thought you were gonna get the list or something like a supervisor. I just have some concerns about the homeless student policy. The policy's put in place, it's my understanding, to be compliant with federal and state law, is that correct?
Yes, in fact, in the margins, it references what parts of the law and the school code.
Okay. Now, the board has certain mechanisms in place so that they can be in compliance. They have certain things they can do, way policies, way procedures, different things like that. Per your policy.
Yes, we have certain latitudes, yes.
Okay. And how would the board know that they needed to waive a policy or do one of the procedures?
It would, let's just say there was an issue somewhere that had been risen up through the superintendent to the dissatisfaction of the person, then the board could act on it.
Okay. So the superintendent, who is also liaison for the policy, makes the recommendations to the board to act on whatever needs to be done.
If there were changes to the policy, it could come from the superintendent or anybody else any administrator who would say.
No, I mean, on behalf of a homeless student.
If there was a dissatisfied homeless student in.
No, if you had a homeless student who had an issue and you needed to use one of your procedures, that's how that gets to you.
If a homeless student needed one of the procedures in the homeless policy to be, let's say, an adjustment for school bus.
Okay.
So we have a homeless student who needs to have transportation, doesn't have an address. This policy addresses that they will be provided transportation. They simply would just go to their administrator and ask for that support. If they didn't get it from that person, it would go up the ranks. If the superintendent for some reason denied the transportation, then the issue could come to the board and we could dictate that Marvin send a bus to wherever it needed to be.
How does the issue come to the board with via the superintendent?
It doesn't.
Okay.
The chain means administrator, superintendent, and then it comes to us.
So if
administrator does not.
So if this is my turn, honey.
This is about.
So if the superintendent is unaware of an issue, how is the board able to be compliant with the state and federal law?
If the superintendent's unaware of the issue and the administrator's been spoken to, so let's say the student is in elementary school.
Personnel are aware, yes.
Personnel are
The
aware.
liaison himself is not aware. So is there?
Right, so a principal has not told the superintendent, is what you're saying, or told the director of
Anybody.
elementary education, hasn't told anybody? You could talk to the superintendent if you haven't been.
No, I'm just asking in general, that you get your information in order to be compliant via.
From the superintendent.
Yes, okay.
He's the
So
only person who works for us.
So if the superintendent is not aware of an issue, then you can't be compliant with that issue. You have no options because you don't know.
Well, we would tell the if we heard about something that hadn't been addressed, we would tell the superintendent, something in your chain seems to be broken, go fix it.
Okay, well, that's where I was going with
Or a
that.
parent doesn't like the decision that was made at the
Mhm.
building, then they work their way up.
Well, that's where I was going with that. There's nothing in the policy that references the chain.
There's a separate policy for the chain.
What policy is that?
It's like 912, is it? 9 something. Yeah, public complaint policy is 9 something.
Is it possible to put something in this policy so that the personnel, that any staff member who is aware of an issue, of a housing issue, where there is, say, a transportation issue or just, anything that provides all the services that are written in here, is there an option to put a clause in here to say, this is what you do? So say if I'm a staff member and I say, oh, we have a policy on that, what do I do? There's no direct line to say that's exactly where you go, so that you all have the option to look at issues.
So it's a fairly new policy for us. I'll bring it back up under policy and have
Which
the board.
one? The homeless student?
The homeless one is a fairly 2011, I think it is 2000.
Yes, 2011.
2011.
Oh, okay.
So it's a 2011 policy. It's nothing that we've had an issue with before. And I just became policy chair, thank you, Zach, in December. So I haven't looked at that one as closely as probably, it hasn't come up for review yet, because every 5 years they get reviewed, and that one's would be due in 2016. So I will bring it up to the top of the list. I have the board look at 10 or 12 policies every month. I'll have them bring that up, have them take a look at it, and see if there is room to add some very clear, hey, I'm aware of an issue and here's what I'm supposed to do.
I asked this question because I have a child in my care who is a student who has been homeless for 6 months, okay, and has received 0 services. And obviously you were all unaware, and because your liaison was unaware. So there needs to be something that assists there's some breakdown in the chain that you're referring to. There's got to be some breakdown, because if the student tells a teacher or a vice principal or someone that they're homeless and nothing happens, you're not in compliance.
Unlike, where we have mandatory reporting when someone says, hey, I've been abused at home and we have to do something about it. We'll take a look and see how that compares to someone who says to a teacher casually or asks for help. I'm not sure what the policy says on that, but if they've identified themselves as homeless and there are services that they certainly under that policy are entitled to, what's the mechanism to get provided those services?
Exactly.
Okay.
Is there any way to, if those services are not provided, what is the student's remedy? In other words, if you have excessive absences, if you have issues for the 6 months that you're homeless, if you then have repercussions because of that, you don't graduate, say, you're required then to pay the $800 for summer school? I mean, what are the other, there's got to be some other way to solve that issue other than penalize the student for services that should have legally been rendered and were not because it was a break in the chain.
So I want to just be really careful that we don't talk about a student issue while it's being recorded, okay? And the press is here to take information, so we're going to stay to the policy. If the policy does not clearly say once a student identifies himself as homeless, these steps will be taken, then we're going to take a look at that policy and get that fixed.
Would as the homeless student, I would like to just also point out that it says, it does not say that the district liaison may how much under this? Upon request, coordinate with local services. It says the district liaison shall coordinate with, and until tonight, I have never even seen Mr. Bellier. And state and local housing agencies responsible for comprehensive housing, I would have loved that. I lived out of my car for well over a month. And the school and administration was completely aware of this, and no services were ever offered to me.
All right, we'll definitely look at the policy
And that has greatly detrimented my education since I was forced out of my home in January. And on top of that,
Matt, we can't talk about individual student issues in public. And you've crossed the line, you're violating state law right now, so you can talk about the policy, but you can't talk about yourself.
Okay, so if there's a breakdown in a policy and you're not compliant, what's the remedy?
The policy procedure in describing the policy as the lowest level, you would be in a private setting with an administrator all your way up, and if appealed all the way to the setting of the board, in which case would also be held privately, and it would not be done in public. So we can't.
Oh, I see. Okay. Okay, so there's no other policy that says if a policy breaks, this is, the remedy.
We do. Well, I mean, we do our best to review our policies as quickly as possible. And, well, I mean, you know what? If you want to look at, you can look at other school districts, and you can see that they don't touch their policy manual for decades. I mean, I know because
basically that's got to be very difficult to cure flaws in a policy like this one. Then I mean, they should be live documents. When you're making policies and they're going through the developmental and implementation phases, that's when you find your problem.
The board sets the policies and the superintendent sets administrative regulations on how to handle those policies. So this is a perfect opportunity for us to take a look at the policy and make sure we've gotten the words right, and then ask the superintendent, what are your administrative regulations behind this? And if we find that there's a gap where someone would identify to an administrator, I'm homeless, I need services, I need this and this and this, and nothing happens, then that would definitely be a breakdown either in the policy or in the administrative regs. And we are the people to
Do we have a written procedure if a student identifies themselves as homeless? Is there something written as to what it could, that would be procedural?
That would be an administrative.
It does say in the policy that he shall coordinate, though.
Yes,
Which-
absolutely.
Right, but if
So
he's not aware,
made aware of
So
it,
there's a breakdown.
Yeah, but that is, there is also another policy issue. That actually,
Well, that's,
I,
I'm done.
I
Thank you.
can't use a name if, according to the student handbook, which is the board's policies, it is the teacher's responsibility to administer tests and specifically, just sticking with tests when a student is absent, if a student is absent on, like during the test, whether the absence is excused or unexcused. And it is the teacher's sole responsibility to do so. If a student is told by administration that it's his responsibility, despite this being a clearly stated board policy, and upon requesting the tests, the student is specifically and recordedly denied being able to take the tests, and then given zeros on those tests when he's denied the ability to take them, would that be able to be used against him? If he can't graduate because the teachers refused to administer tests to him when he was out because he was, like, say he was dying.
and the policy was followed that said, I didn't get satisfaction from the teacher, I went to the
Administration.
the principal, I've had a conversation with the principal, I've had a conversation with the director of secondary education, if we're talking high school, I've then had a conversation with the superintendent, then I get to the board.
But what happens, and another breakdown in the chain, if the student is given the wrong direction?
If
Say
the-
I ask the administration about it and the administration gives me completely wrong
This-
direction.
the-
So I cannot meet with the secondary education.
You can always meet with this, you
I
can
was
skip
unaware
any-
because they,
It's in the
because
policy,
in
you
this
can
type of-
skip any level, if you are dissatisfied with the level you've spoken with, you can skip and go up to the next level.
that is why, weird. I was not aware that I can't speak about this because it's being recorded, but my class is graduating tomorrow, and I'm not entirely sure how much time I have left to.
We're back to talking about you personally. And
I
really have-
tried
really-
not to
let
get
me-
into
let me-
that.
Now you have to let me talk for a second. I really have to ask you to stop, because you're talking about a student issue, and it's in front of the press, and this board is not allowed to address that. So if you're looking for an answer, you're gonna have to do it through the chain that you now know exists. But it's not gonna be at this public meeting as it relates to you.
And that's why I'm asking.
So what we're suggesting to you is.
What the student would do in that situation. if
That
there
student's
was-
gonna talk, that student's gonna talk to his teacher. If he doesn't get satisfaction from his teacher, he's gonna go to his principal. He gets no satisfaction from his principal, he'll go to the director of secondary education. If he gets no satisfaction on that level, he can go to the superintendent. If he gets no satisfaction, he can ask for a private meeting with the board. But there won't be a public meeting to air the grievance of the student, period.
Private meeting.
I,
We're unaware of
how
the
would I
private
go
meeting.
about calling of a meeting? A
Well,
private
why
meeting?
don't you try contacting the superintendent, see what happens.
Well, I gave Mrs. Byrne a direction about what they need to do.
No, he's not
with the
Fern.
teachers. I said,
Mrs. Oh, Mrs. Fern.
about we need to have a meeting with the teachers. Like I said in the email, we need to have a meeting.
Oh,
with
right,
the
but I was
teachers.
here, I wanted to talk about the policy and the break in the policy
No, I'm
because
just saying for him.
there can't be legal compliance
Well,
if you don't
Mr.
know
Byrne,
what's going on.
The response to that is that you brought to the attention of the board what you perceive as a flaw in the policy. I don't have the policy in front of me. Mrs. Casey, who handles the, thank you, Mr. President, who handles these policies, is now going to address that with the
Right,
board. So that we certainly appreciate you doing. And we will deal with it. And we deal with policies, as you can see, at every meeting, so we'll deal with that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other items of other business?
Sorry, Zach, I did ask Bill to give me the final millage rate and the final budget for the 2% tax increase that we approved, and I'll just ask him to read that, so the press has it.
2% tax increase with millage rate of 108.19 mils for a total amount, gross dollar amount on revenues and expenditures of $75,563,802. And all the resolutions will read that way accordingly, and a transfer tax at 0.005, because you have to approve that officially. $347,600 will go to the PACERS account code, whereby then at the end of the year, it will be planned on being committed to the PACERS fund balance. And the revenue side would increase for real estate taxes by $347,600.
Can you give me that bill again? 347,000 is going to pieces?
347,600 is what the math comes out to be, Jeff.
And what account number is that?
Well, it's code 230. But it hits a bunch of different functions, so the code is 230 for what, for the
You
accounting. end
email
of it.
me all those ones that it does hit?
It's instruction, I mean, it's every code.
In 230.
230 is the code you need to see.
Because there's
That if you
pieces costs
see-
for administrators,
Yeah.
regular ed, special ed, support staff, so all those personnel codes all over. That's what he means by
This paper I handed out tonight that was in your handout, okay, picture on this side, it's on the expense side, I'm gonna put code 230 here, increase that and decrease, or increase the tax on this side. And make it
I didn't get the last number that you had,
last number.
real estate side of the increase.
Both sides, the PSER side will go up 347,600, and the taxes will go up 347,600. By going from 1.21 to 2%.
All right, the next meeting of the school board will be on July 23rd at 7 PM right here in the administrative offices. Can I have a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved.
Moved by Jack O'Leary, second.
Second.
Second by John. All in favor?
Jeff.